The Eternal Promise. A love story beyond time. In the heart of a picturesque village nestled between rolling hills and a tranquil river, a young woman named Isabel Montgomery found solace in the vast library her grandmother once owned. It was a place where stories whispered through the air like long-forgotten secrets, where love, adventure, and tragedy were confined within the pages of dusty books. But nothing prepared Isabel for the discovery that would change her life forever. One evening, as a golden sunset bathed the library in a warm glow, she stumbled upon an old leather-bound journal hidden behind a row of forgotten novels. The initials CW were engraved on its cover, unfamiliar yet strangely intimate. She hesitated before opening it, feeling as though she was about to unravel a mystery meant for her alone. The first page held a letter, its ink slightly smudged with age, but still legible. To the one who finds this, know that this is not just a book. It is a love that transcends time. It is a heart that beats even beyond death. If you read these words, you are part of this story now, as I have always known you would be. Meet me where the cherry blossoms bloom, and you will understand. Isabel's heart pounded as she turned the page, drawn into a tale that felt eerily familiar, yet impossibly distant. A love that spanned generations. 100 years ago, a young artist named Christopher Whitmore lived in the very same village. He was known for his breathtaking paintings of the town's cherry blossom trees, each canvas infused with a longing that no one could quite understand. But what most didn't know was that Christopher had once been deeply in love with a woman he had never met, yet whose presence haunted his every dream. Each night, he saw visions of a woman with striking emerald eyes, standing beneath the cherry blossom trees, waiting for him. Desperate to find her, Christopher painted her face over and over again, each stroke of his brush capturing the details that existed only in his mind. The villagers called him obsessed, claiming he was chasing a ghost. Yet he refused to believe that she wasn't real. He was convinced that somewhere, in another time or place, she existed, and she was searching for him, too. One spring evening, as cherry blossoms rained down in delicate pink showers, Christopher sat beneath the largest tree, whispering into the wind, "If you are real, find me." And then, as if answering his call, a mysterious journal appeared at his doorstep the next morning. It bore his own initials, written in a handwriting he did not recognize, yet one that felt as if it belonged to someone he loved. Inside, he found letters addressed to him, letters written by a woman from the future, a woman who described his paintings, his dreams, and the love they shared. A woman who was waiting for him, though neither knew how to reach across time to be together. Destiny's intersection. As Isabel read deeper into the journal, her world began to unravel. The woman Christopher had written about, the one in his dreams, the one in his paintings. It was her. But how was that possible? Her fingers trembled as she reached the final pages, which held only one message: "Meet me where the cherry blossoms bloom." A chill ran down her spine as she realized that the cherry blossom grove still existed, untouched for over a century. Could it be possible? Could love truly transcend time? She knew she had to go. A timeless reunion. The next morning, with Christopher's journal clutched tightly in her hands, Isabel made her way to the ancient cherry blossom grove. The trees stood in full bloom, just as they had in the paintings she had seen. The air was filled with the soft scent of blossoms, and the sunlight filtered through the branches, casting dappled shadows on the ground. She waited, her heart racing, wondering if she had been foolish to believe in something so impossible. But just as she was about to turn away, a soft gust of wind rustled through the trees, and she heard footsteps approaching. And then she saw him. Christopher. He stood at the edge of the grove exactly as she had imagined him. Dark hair, deep brown eyes filled with wonder, wearing clothes that belonged to another time. Tears blurred Isabel's vision. "You're real?" she whispered. Christopher's eyes shone with disbelief, his voice thick with emotion. "I've waited for you," he said, "for so long." The moment they touched, time seemed to collapse around them. A century melted away as past and present became one. The wind carried their laughter, their whispers, their love reborn across time itself. They didn't need to understand the how or why of it. All that mattered was that they had found each other, against all odds, against the laws of time, against reason itself. Some loves were never meant to be lost. Christopher pulled her closer, his fingertips tracing the curve of her face. "I used to dream about this moment," he murmured. "About you." Isabel smiled through her tears. "I dreamed about you too." He cupped her face gently, pressing a soft, lingering kiss against her lips. It was the kind of kiss that spoke of lifetimes, of love unfulfilled and finally found. A kiss that carried the weight of 100 years of waiting. A love that never ends. The days turned into weeks, and Isabel and Christopher became inseparable. They spent their afternoons wandering the village together, revisiting the places Christopher had known in his past life. Places that had changed, yet still held the echoes of their love. They talked for hours under the cherry blossom trees, sharing stories of their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. One evening, as the sun set, Christopher took Isabel's hand and whispered, "I don't want to lose you again." She squeezed his hand tightly. "You won't. I promise." But even as she said it, a shadow of doubt loomed over them. Could they really defy time forever? Or was fate waiting to reclaim what it had momentarily allowed them to have? The more they tried to hold on to their love, the more they felt time shifting around them. Strange things began to happen. Christopher would vanish for moments at a time, as if the universe was trying to pull him back into the past. One night, as they danced beneath the cherry blossoms, the world around them shimmered. Christopher gasped, gripping Isabel's arms. "Something is wrong," he whispered. A soft wind blew through the trees, carrying voices from another time, echoes of a past they had tried to escape. "Promise me," Christopher said, his voice breaking. "Promise me you'll find me again." Tears streamed down Isabel's face as she clung to him. "I swear, no matter how many lifetimes it takes, I will find you." And then, just like that, he was gone. Isabel fell to her knees, the cherry blossoms swirling around her like silent witnesses to a love stolen by time once again. But deep in her heart, she knew this wasn't the end. Because some love stories never truly end. Some loves wait. And so would she. The air grew thick with tension as Isabel and Christopher stood in the eerie silence left behind by the stranger's warning. The name, the clockmaker, hung heavy between them, an enigma wrapped in fear. What did he mean by time unraveling? Could it be possible that their reunion had disrupted the natural order of things? Determined to find answers, they turned to the only place they knew to start, the old archives in the village's forgotten church, where records of the past were said to be kept. As they entered the dimly lit stone chamber, dust swirled in the candlelight, and the scent of old parchment filled the air. Christopher's fingers trembled as he flipped through the yellowed pages of ancient documents, searching for any mention of a clockmaker. Then Isabel gasped, pulling out an old ledger. "Look at this." There, etched in elegant script, was the name Lucien Duval, the clockmaker. Below it, a chilling inscription. The man who once controlled time vanished into the void, leaving chaos in his wake. A cold shiver ran down Christopher's spine. If Lucien had truly tampered with time, had he somehow been the cause of their endless separation? Was he the reason their love had been cursed across centuries? But before they could read further, the candlelight flickered violently, and a sudden gust of wind slammed the heavy wooden doors shut. The room darkened, and a whisper echoed through the chamber, a voice neither human nor entirely spectral. "You shouldn't have come looking." A shadow slithered along the stone walls, shifting like smoke, and Isabel felt her breath hitch as an overwhelming force pressed against her chest. Christopher reached for her, but before their fingers could meet, the world around them twisted. The stone beneath their feet cracked, the very air seemed to bend, and suddenly, the library wasn't a library anymore. Instead, they found themselves standing in a vast, circular chamber, gears and pendulums towering above them, a room suspended between past and future. And at its center, standing before an ornate clock with its hands frozen at 11:59, was a tall figure with piercing golden eyes. Lucien Duval. "You have meddled with forces beyond your understanding," Lucien's voice rumbled, his expression unreadable. "And now, time demands payment." Christopher stepped forward, shielding Isabel. "We only want to be together. We never meant to." Lucien raised a hand and the gears in the chamber groaned. "Love is the most dangerous force in the universe," he mused. "It bends reason, it defies fate, and now it threatens to unravel everything." Isabel clenched her fists. "Then why have we been searching for each other across lifetimes? Why do we keep finding our way back?" Lucien studied her for a long moment, then sighed. "Because I let you." Silence fell between them. "I was once like you," Lucien murmured, stepping toward them. "A man in love. And I too defied time to keep what was mine. But time is not a kind master. It is a debt that must be paid." Christopher's grip on Isabel tightened. "Then take me instead." Isabel's heart lurched. "No." Lucien's golden eyes softened, almost regretful. "It doesn't work that way." He raised his hand again, and the frozen clock behind him began to move backward. Suddenly, Christopher staggered, his form flickering like a candle in the wind. "No!" Isabel screamed, lunging toward him, but the force of time itself pulled him away, his body vanishing into a swirl of golden light. Lucien's gaze fell on her. "You have one chance, Isabel," he said quietly. "One chance to rewrite this ending. But it comes with a price." Through the rising despair in her chest, Isabel met his gaze. "I'll do anything." Lucien nodded solemnly, then listened carefully. As the clock continued to unwind, time peeling back like pages from an old book, Isabel braced herself for what was to come. Because some love stories were never meant to end, and she would do whatever it took to rewrite theirs. Lucien's golden eyes gleamed with something unreadable. Pity or amusement, Isabel couldn't tell. The chamber around them trembled. gears groaning, the air thick with an unseen force pressing against her chest. "You have one chance," Lucian repeated, his voice softer this time. "A moment where fate is pliable, but if you fail, time will correct itself, violently." Isabel swallowed hard, her heart pounding. "What do I have to do?" Lucian raised his hand, and the great clock behind him shuddered. A burst of light erupted from its frozen hands, and suddenly, Isabel was no longer in the chamber. A leap through time. The world spun, a blur of color and motion. When it settled, Isabel found herself standing in a cobblestone alleyway, her vision hazy, her pulse erratic. The air smelled of soot and rain, the distant glow of gas lamps flickering against the foggy night. She turned and gasped. "Christopher!" He stood at the end of the alley, dressed in clothing that matched the era of his old paintings, staring at her as if she had materialized from thin air. His dark eyes were filled with confusion and something deeper, recognition. "Isabel!" Tears burned her eyes as she took a step forward. "Christopher, it's me." His breath hitched, and he rushed to her, his hands grasping her face like he needed to be sure she was real. "How? How is this possible?" Before she could answer, a chilling wind swept through the alley. A shadow detached itself from the darkness, taking form, a figure cloaked in swirling mist, its features shifting unnaturally. Lucian's warning rang in her ears. "If you fail, time will correct itself, violently." The figure lunged. Christopher pulled her behind him, shielding her with his body. Isabel's heart pounded. "We have to run." They tore through the streets, the creature gliding behind them, gaining ground. Isabel didn't understand what it was, but she could feel it, time itself hunting them down. As they rounded a corner, a massive clock tower loomed overhead, its hands moving impossibly fast. Christopher yanked Isabel toward a rusted door, shoving it open just as the shadow closed in. They stumbled inside, breathless, the world eerily silent. The final hour. The chamber inside was massive, filled with clocks of every shape and size. Their ticking created a rhythmic heartbeat, a living pulse in the still air. Christopher turned to her, his hands trembling. "I remember." Isabel sucked in a breath. "What?" He swallowed. "Everything. Every lifetime. Every time I lost you." Her chest tightened. "Then you know we can stop this." He nodded, stepping closer, his fingers brushing against hers. "But it has to be now." Lucian's voice suddenly filled the chamber. "You have mere moments left before the cycle repeats." Isabel turned, and there he stood, watching them with an expression of something like sorrow. "What do we do?" she pleaded. Lucian exhaled. "You break the loop." Christopher's grip on her hand tightened. "Tell us how." Lucian hesitated. "One of you must stay behind." Isabel's breath caught. "No." Christopher looked at her, his eyes filled with love and resolve. "Isabel, listen to me." She shook her head violently. "No, we've fought too hard for this." Lucian's voice remained steady. "A sacrifice must be made to reset time." Christopher turned to him. "Can it be me?" Lucian studied him. "If it is your choice." A clock behind them chimed once. The shadow that had followed them lurked just beyond the threshold, waiting. Christopher cupped Isabel's face. I would give up 1,000 lifetimes just to know you're safe." Tears streamed down her face. "Please don't do this." He pressed his forehead against hers. "We will find each other again. We always do." Then, before she could stop him, he stepped back into the golden light of the clock. A force like a tidal wave ripped through the air. Isabel screamed as light consumed the chamber, and then everything went black, an ending or a beginning. When Isabel awoke, she was lying on a soft bed, sunlight streaming through the curtains. The scent of cherry blossoms drifted through the open window. She sat up, her heart racing. Where was she? A soft knock at the door. She turned just as a man stepped inside. Dark hair, deep brown eyes, a stranger. Or was he? The man smiled gently. "Good morning, Isabel." Her breath caught. Somewhere deep inside her, in the place where memories and dreams intertwined, she knew. Christopher had found her again. And this time, maybe, just maybe, they would get there forever.